It's lovely to see you and thank you for joining us. We're sharing today something that a destination and activities that are very close to our hearts, based partially around Henley, classic cars and river cruising. So we've got some lovely video footage and so on. And it's quite a simple day. It hasn't necessarily got the splendour of Blenheim and so on, but certainly the feedback from our clients is it's one of their favourites because they feel so very English when they do it, which is the object of the exercise and always great. So let me just switch over here. So the wonder of being based around Henley is we are about an hour or so, we're about 25 miles west of London. So as far as being part of a bigger itinerary is concerned, this is absolutely perfect. And although I do want to stress, although we have based this particular experience around Henley, as you will imagine, we can choose locations, and it's possible here in the Cotswolds, down in the southwest, Somerset, Devon, Cornwall, and so on. So although it is based, this one's around Henley, it's a movable feast. So we'll be happy to make it part of any itinerary. So just to start off with, if you imagine your clients just want to get the wind in their hair and drive down some lovely quiet country lanes through some chocolate box villages and see beautiful little cottages and our country pubs and that sort of thing, with the roof down in a 1920s Bentley, something like that, then this is what we create for our guests. We've got a whole fabulous selection of classic cars. Some of them are self-drive, so your clients can get behind the wheel if they choose. The older and more classic ones, they will be chauffeured more often than not by the owner, actually, which is lovely, because the owners of these beautiful Bentleys and Rolls and so on are as passionate as you can get. So they know the intimate history of these cars and who's driven them and where they've been and so on. And it's the cars have these glorious stories in in themselves, which is just lovely. So the locations, as I say, can be anywhere to fit in with the rest of the itinerary. And if they just want a simple hour and a half, 2 hours driving through the countryside, that's fantastic. Or if they have booked a private tour of Highclere and want to turn up in style, then that's happily an option as well. So it's completely flexible, but these cars are just magical. Now, if you have guests, clients who are really passionate about their cars, and they don't just want to experience a bit of a drive in the countryside, but they'd like to turn up at one of our fabulous classic car events in a classic car, then we will happily create that. I mean, it seems like the Salon Privé may well still happen. That's at Blenheim again this year, and is always the first weekend of September. Goodwood Revival, which is a stunning event. It's down in Sussex at the Goodwood Estate, for those of you who haven't come across it. And they just go back. It's looking at all of the cars of the 1950s and 1960s. And probably 95% of the people who visit get all dressed up in 50s clothes and stuff. So it's absolutely incredible. And they have processions and races of all of these classic cars. That takes place over about 3 days, and is normally about the third week of September. So it's a rather fantastic event. And then also a good word down in Sussex and this has been cancelled sadly this year, but is a fantastic event every year. In about mid-July is the Festival of Speed, and they have some of the rarest and most extraordinary cars at the Festival of Speed. So again, they can get dressed up, have their hair done, and turn up in a classic Bentley or Jaguar, something like that. Um, Now, attached to some of these events, but also through some of the private owners clubs, are some rather fabulous driving tours. And they are one of them I know that we got involved in last year, started down in Bath. End destination was one of the big Salon Privé type events at Windsor. And they took about 3 days driving through the countryside in convoy of all of these magnificent cars to get to the ultimate destination. So they stayed at beautiful country house hotels en route, and then ended up at this rather fabulous event in the grounds of Windsor Castle. So there's all sorts that we can do. I mean, we've just heard today on the news, funny enough, that they may well still have the British Grand Prix at Silverstone this year, but it's going to be behind closed doors. But equally, we've got very close to two of the Formula One racing team headquarters. There's a rather fabulous Aston Martin experience that they can go and enjoy. So if you've got some people who are lovingly known as petrol heads, then there's all sorts that we can choose from. And these are just some of the cars that we have hired. And as I've said a couple of times, the wonderful thing about this job is that we have to try out all of these wonderful things in the countryside. And you might see the big smile on Lisa's face, because that picture on the bottom right is sharing Lisa's absolute passion for classic cars. So this is one of her absolute favourites to organise, because she just loves trying it out. So there she is in full glory, and here she is in action, driving through some English countryside with the roof down and the sun out. So this is us sampling what we love to sell. And as you can see, lovely farming countryside. So we have suggested that a starting point, and I'll go through the itinerary in detail with you, but a starting point would be a lovely drive for the purposes of this one through some gorgeous Chilterns countryside. And if any of you are fans or have ever watched an episode of Midsummer Murders, a couple of Agatha Christie's, then you'll certainly recognise some of the countryside, because it's all around here that it's filmed. And we're a little bit biased about Henley, because it's where I live, it's where I set up the business. So we're based right in the heart of our beautiful riverside town, which is very, very special. And it's there's all sorts of wonderful history about Henley. In the heart of the town, next to the church, is Longlands House, which is rather lovely. And a great chap who's a bit of an eccentric lives there, but we all love him. And it was built for Henry VIII's confessor, who was called Longlands. Now, I think that's a bit of a poison chalice myself as far as a job's concerned, because you could imagine if you did say the wrong thing to Henry VIII, then you might not sort of live too long to tell the tale. But I think he did quite a decent job as a confessor. So I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. We've got a weekly market that is in a charter that goes back to the 13th century. And the facades of some of the buildings hide all sorts of stories and history and so on. Henley probably now is best known for Henley Royal Regatta, and you'll see some of the video footage of that in a bit. Sadly, that's not happening this year, and we get very used to it all being set up alongside the riverside. It always starts in the week after Easter, and we all get quite excited because we know that summer is on its way. It all seems very quiet down there this year, which is rather sad. But the week following regatta, we have the most stunning music festival, and we will do a tea and training event about Henley Festival, because it's a festival unlike any other you can imagine. It's almost the opposite of Glastonbury, except you have got music. That's about the only similarity. The Henley version, everyone is in black tie, and it's on the river. You have Michelin starred dining, and it's all rather wonderful. We also have a literary festival, which is now the third biggest literary festival in the country. That happens at the end of September and is at all sorts of wonderful venues all around the town. And then we have an amazing living Advent calendar in the whole month of December. So, Joan, you mentioned looking about the Christmas markets earlier. It's something wonderfully eccentric, but we have a performance every evening behind a window as we get closer to Christmas, and everyone stands out in the cold drinking mulled wine and listening and watching the performance. So Henley is a pretty vibrant place to live and work, and we're jolly lucky to be here. So once your clients have had their a couple of hours driving through the country lanes and enjoying the countryside, we would recommend them coming into Henley, climbing aboard their beautiful river launch and heading off down the river. Now, I did say last week that the stretch of river by Windsor is absolutely beautiful, and I may be a bit biased, but I think Henley's river stretch is even better. The stories and the history and so on, and it goes back to Victorian times, when many people wanted to escape the bustle of London and the city and so on. And Henley was probably the closest and prettiest place to come. Phyllis Court Club, which is a beautiful private members club on the river, was established around that time, and it became a real sort of social sporting hub in and around Henley, and we've never really lost that, which is lovely. So that expression about messing about on boats is well and truly the case in our lovely little town. And the boat that you see here is quite typical of the boats on this stretch of the river. That's a gentleman's launch. We have some beautiful slipper launches, and I'll happily share some pictures with you. Those don't have the roofs and so on, but it's this highly polished wooden style of boat, which is just so lovely, and we see lots of them. And our skippers are absolutely fantastic. They know all of the stories, and they love recounting tales and sharing all the news of the riverside, which is great fun. Now, they could choose on this day either to have lunch and then a river cruise and an afternoon tea on board. Alternatively, they may wish to have a lovely picnic lunch on board and enjoy the river cruise that way. It's all possible, and it's all available. The River and Row Museum is also in Henley, and they can learn, if they're interested, a little bit about the history of the River Thames, and as we're rather sort of partial to our rowing, as we host the world's biggest and best regatta, there are a lot of fabulous rowing stories and stories about our rowing heroes and so on, which is just lovely. And also, as I said earlier, Phyllis Court Club, which is just beautiful on the riverside. They can happily stop there and have afternoon tea. So there are all sorts of lovely options to enjoy. And here again are just some of the styles of boats and some of the views that they will see. So let's share a little bit more with you. Now, unfortunately, the weather wasn't quite so brilliant on this particular day, but this is one of our favourite little boats called Midsummer Maiden. And as you can see, it's not only covered, but they've got the screens that can drop down the side. So if the weather isn't quite so kind, then there is some shelter. And that's looking across at Upper Thames, which is one of the rowing clubs. And this was just before regatta last year, so you can see, well, two of them training. I don't know what the other two are doing, sitting at the back, but a bit of rowing going on. Henley Bridge is quite, it's an iconic structure and absolutely lovely. Um, and that's looking into the heart of the town. And then on the other side of the river, you'll see this is where Henley Royal Regatta takes place. And the pink stripy tent is Leander Club, which is the most successful sports club in the world. I think they now claim to have something like 129 Olympic medals that they have won, with the singles, the pairs, right through to the eights as well. So they've done rather well. And if we turn the day around a little bit, and your clients would like to do a riverside cruise, a river cruise in the evening, you can see just how lovely it is. And actually, I can tell you, I'm very lucky. This is where I go walking every morning with my golden retriever. I walk down by the river every morning and see it looking like that. So it's really rather a special place, and you can see why we love it so much. So as I said, it's about an hour or so from London, and lovely and close to Oxford, Blenheim, Windsor, Highclere, and so on. And not only, and we're about 25 minutes from Cliveden, from Coworth Park, about 40 minutes down to Heckfield Place for hotels and so on. And recently Monkey Island opened in Bray, home of all the Michelin-starred restaurants as well. So there are a good few lovely hotels, all within sort of 35 minutes or so. And you can, some of them we can even get to and from by boat as well. So it's nice and central, easy to do in a day, or to stay locally and press on. So this gives you an idea of how an itinerary might work. Coming out from London, meeting their classic car and driver, or if they've hired it, obviously we can have it delivered to a London hotel. They'll be given, if they're doing the self-drive, obviously we will provide very detailed routes and so on that they can choose from. A lovely lunch in Henley at Phyllis Court, or aboard their boat, and finishing off with a river cruise and afternoon tea. So as I said at the start, it's quite a simple day, but really rather lovely, and so very English. It's what we love to do during the summer. And so in terms of pricing, we can do as much or as little as you would like to do for your clients. So starting with the simple sort of chauffeured car, meeting the classic car, the drive, and an afternoon tea at Phyllis, through to the whole experience as we've described, and then finishing with a rather lovely dinner at a stately home. The one that specifically where we've done this close to Henley is a beautiful place called Stoner Park, just outside, about 5 miles away. And the Lord of the Manor, William, will happily host your clients for pre-dinner drinks. He does the best tour of his house, and actually he's going to feature in a tea and training, I'm hoping the week after next. So you will meet meet William then. So he will do a tour of his house and all of the fabulous history. His family has lived there for 850 years, which is quite extraordinary. And then your clients can go into one of the private dining rooms for a rather lovely dinner, which is a rather nice way to finish off a special day. So there are all sorts of different options from which you can choose. So there's a lot of information about the river and Stoner and the cars, all on the website and our Facebook pages, as always. So if you fancy having a bit more of a dig and delve and seeing a little bit more, then please do go hunting. And if Lisa will unmute everybody, and please do ask any questions, and Lisa can let me know if I've missed anything out in my description. Is there anything that you would like to know?
I'm just jealous where you're quarantined. That's awful beautiful to walk there every day.
I know. I completely agree. But believe me, we do keep saying how lucky we are, so we don't ever take it for granted.
So gorgeous.
Thank you.
We do have one question. What time of year is regatta and the festival?
Normally? Oh, yes, sorry for that. Regatta is always the first week of July. So Regatta Saturday always is the first Saturday of July. And it's actually, as from next year, it's going to be 6 days. So it's going to start on the Tuesday and run through to the Sunday. We will do a whole tea and training about it, but it's a stunning event, and it builds up to the Sunday when they have all of the finals, and the rowing is quite amazing. And then we go through the incredible transformation, having finished on the Sunday. By the following Wednesday, so just 4 days later, it's that same site, the Stewards Enclosure, becomes Henley Festival, and they have a floating stage and all of these amazing restaurants and performance marquees and so on. So it really is wonderful. So yeah, first 2 weeks of July are pretty busy, but lots of fun in Henley. And the Literary Festival is end of September. Have I missed anything, Lisa? Do you think that I should have added?
No, I think that's everything. I think we touched upon the fact that you can drive some of the cars if your clients want to themselves. And equally, in addition to what Sam mentioned about the visits to some of the F1 sites, there's also the Jaguar Club and the design factory and manufacturing factory, as well as the BMW plant in Oxford as well. So if there's any clients with a specific interest in a certain type of car, or they want to join sort of a Sunday scramble as part of a classic car club or anything like that, then we can organise it. I will happily do that for you.
As you've gathered, it's a bit of a passion of Lisa's. Wonderful. Okay, well, please do, as I say, if you've got any questions after this, come back and let us know. And a huge thank you for your lovely messages. Debbie, we can't wait to talk to you about your family that you mentioned in your message. So please do keep feeding back, because it's great to know that we're hopefully doing the subjects that you want.
So you did an orientation?
Wednesday, I'm delighted to say that Morris is joining us again. He's very much looking forward to seeing you all and talking about game shooting and an area that he's a real expert in, which is English etiquette, and specifically about shooting etiquette. So he will be entertaining you with some wonderful stories and ways of looking after your clients. And then on Friday, as I mentioned to you, Joan, we're visiting Bath, the beautiful city of Bath, and talking about the different things you can do throughout the year, but also sharing some footage of the rather beautiful Christmas market that we visited last year. So a huge thank you for joining us today. Apologies about the connection issues, and thank you for your perseverance. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.